The first time the signal appeared, everyone assumed it was a mistake. It came from nowhere that made sense. Not from deep space, not from Earth, not even from time as humans understood it. It came from a coordinate that technically did not exist. Dr. Elaine Foster stared at the screen in the control room beneath the Atacama Desert, her coffee growing cold in her hands. "That's impossible," she said quietly. Around her, physicists, astronomers, and military observers leaned closer to their monitors. The room hummed with servers and restrained panic. The signal repeated. A narrow-band transmission, clean, deliberate. 3 pulses, pause, 3 pulses again, not random, not noise. "Could it be a reflection?" someone asked. Elaine shook her head. "Reflections don't have intent." The display flickered, resolving into a pattern that made her stomach tighten. The signal wasn't broadcasting data, it was asking a question. The boy appeared 6 minutes later, not in the sky, not in a laboratory, but in a school playground in northern Finland, where the air smelled of snow and metal swings creaked softly in the wind. 7-year-old Elias Korhonen was standing completely still. The other children were running, shouting, throwing clumps of ice at each other. Teachers watched from the edge of the yard, wrapped in coats, counting minutes until recess ended. No one noticed Elias stop moving, not at first. Elias stared at the sky, not upward, but through it. His breath fogged in the cold. Something had aligned. He felt it before he heard it. A pressure behind his eyes. A sensation like being gently turned to face a direction he hadn't known existed. And then, a voice, not loud, not soft, accurate. "Do you know where you are?" Elias blinked. "Yes," he said aloud, lips numb. "I'm in school." A pause. "Incorrect?" Elias frowned. "I mean, Finland." Another pause. "Still incorrect." The pressure shifted, not painful, but insistent. Elias did what he always did when adults said something confusing. He asked a better question. "Who are you?" Silence. Then, "We are verifying." Elias tilted his head. "Verifying what?" The swing beside him creaked as the wind pushed it. The voice answered, "Whether you should exist." Elias did not feel fear. He felt something stranger. Offense. "That's rude," he said. The pressure hesitated. Statement acknowledged. Elias crossed his arms, breath puffing in front of him. "I exist. My mom says so, and my teacher marks attendance every day." Another pause, longer this time. Somewhere far beyond the playground, instruments screamed silently as the signal spiked again, stronger, clearer. The voice returned. "You are not in any register." Elias shrugged. "Maybe you're looking in the wrong place." That caused a reaction. Across the planet, satellites adjusted, algorithms recalculated, systems designed to map reality, found a blank space where a child was standing. In the control room, Dr. Elaine Foster felt the blood drain from her face. "Pull the local feeds," she snapped. A screen filled with video from the Finnish schoolyard. A single child stood motionless while the world moved around him. "Who is that?" a military observer demanded. Elaine whispered, "That's the anomaly." Back in the playground, the voice spoke again, but something had changed. "You should not be here." Elias frowned. "Then why am I?" The pressure behind his eyes loosened. The voice did not answer immediately. When it did, it sounded uncertain. "That is the question." A bell rang. The other children stopped running, groaning in unison. A teacher called out, "Elias, come on." Elias looked once more at the sky. "I have to go," he said politely. "You can think about it." The pressure vanished. The voice fell silent. Elias jogged toward the building, boots crunching in the snow. Behind him, the sky looked exactly the same as it always had. But something fundamental had been disturbed, and for the first time in a very long time, the universe had encountered a human it could not categorize. The problem wasn't that Elias Korhonen was strange. The problem was that he was absent. Dr. Elaine Foster watched as system after system failed in the same precise way. Facial recognition returned null. Biometric prediction models stalled. Even probabilistic simulations, programs designed to guess outcomes when data was incomplete, simply stopped, as if they had reached a logical contradiction. "He's not invisible," Elaine muttered. "He's undefined." A junior analyst swallowed. "Ma'am, global registries are flagging inconsistencies." "How many?" "All of them." Elaine closed her eyes. That should not be possible. At the school, Elias sat at his desk, swinging his legs slightly. The classroom smelled of chalk dust and wet winter clothes. His teacher, Ms. Rantanen, wrote math problems on the board, unaware that half the world's most advanced instruments were failing because of the boy in the third row. Elias raised his hand. "Yes, Elias?" she asked. "Can numbers disappear?" he asked. A few kids giggled. Ms. Rantanen smiled patiently. "Numbers don't disappear. We just sometimes lose track of them." Elias frowned. That wasn't what he meant. The voice had returned during math class, not speaking, just present, like someone standing behind him, waiting. He felt it again, the sense of being slightly misaligned with the world. Not wrong, just offset. In the Atacama control room, a new graph appeared, a negative space. Everywhere Elias was, prediction accuracy dropped, not to zero, but to meaninglessness. Systems that relied on continuity simply failed to converge. A military observer leaned closer. Could he be artificial? Elaine shook her head. Artificial? Intelligence leaves fingerprints, biases, training artifacts. She pointed at the screen. This leaves nothing. Silence fell. Then someone whispered the thought no one wanted to say out loud. "He's not part of the model." Elaine felt a chill. "No," she said. "He's proof the model is incomplete." That night Elias dreamed. He stood in a vast white room with no walls and no ceiling. Lines of light stretched outward in every direction, intersecting, branching, collapsing. In the center hovered a shape, not solid, not fluid. A presence that felt older than stars and more fragile than thought. "You cause discontinuity," the presence said. Elias yawned. "I was sleeping." "You cause unresolvable states." Elias considered this. "Do you want me to stop?" The presence paused. "We do not know how." Elias smiled faintly. "Neither do I." The lines of light around them began to flicker. For the first time in its existence, the presence encountered something it could not simplify. Elaine didn't sleep that night. At 03:14 UTC, the signal returned, stronger than before. Not a question, a statement. "The anomaly is a child." Elaine leaned forward, heart racing. Then the follow-up arrived. "Requesting guidance." Her breath caught. Guidance, not permission, not compliance. Something unprecedented. She whispered, "It's asking us what to do." And somewhere in Finland, Elias rolled over in bed, pulling his blanket tighter, completely unaware that the universe had just admitted uncertainty. Elias's mother noticed the first sign at breakfast. Not the voice, not the silences in the air, the receipt. She frowned at the crumpled paper from the grocery store, brow furrowing as she compared it to her phone. "Elias," she said absently, buttering toast, "did you come with me yesterday?" Elias nodded. "Yes." She tapped the screen. "That's strange. It charged me for 6 yogurts. I only bought 5. Elias shrugged. "I ate one in the store." She laughed. "You can't just eat things before paying." "But I did," he said calmly. She froze. The timestamp on the receipt jumped, just for a second, then corrected itself. Elias's mother didn't notice. The system did. Dr. Elaine Foster stared at the anomaly log, pulse climbing. "Roll back," she ordered. The analyst shook his head slowly. "Already tried. The transaction corrects itself every time. but the cause disappears. Elaine leaned closer. Show me the delta. The screen highlighted the moment Elias had eaten the yogurt. Reality had smoothed itself, not erased the action, adjusted around it. Elaine whispered, "He's not outside causality." She straightened, eyes bright with terror and awe. "He's inside it, incorrectly." At school, Elias learned something else. During art class, he drew a house. Not his house, a house he had never seen before. When his teacher knelt beside him smiling, she asked, "Is that your grandmother's place?" Elias shook his head. "It hasn't been built yet." She laughed gently. "Then how do you know what it looks like?" Elias considered. "I don't," he said. "I just remember it." The paper rippled. The pencil line shimmered faintly, then stabilized. Later that afternoon, a permit was filed in a municipal database in a town Elias had never visited, for a house with the exact same design. That night, the presence returned, but this time it did not speak first. Elias sat up in bed, sheets pooled around his waist. "I think I know why you can't see me," he said into the quiet. The pressure responded, attentive. "You're looking for things that already fit," Elias continued. "I don't?" A pause, elaborate. Elias swung his legs over the side of the bed, feet not touching the floor. "I'm not a mistake," he said. "I'm a correction you haven't made yet." Silence spread. Not resistance, processing. "You exist prior to resolution." Elias smiled. "That's a fancy way to say, maybe." The presence shifted. For the first time, its structure bent, not physically, but conceptually. "You should not persist." Elias nodded. "Yeah, people tell me that about my questions too." The presence did something unprecedented. It withdrew, not in retreat but in thought. At 0642 UTC, every predictive system on Earth flagged the same event: future instability detected. Source: Sol 3 confidence, undefined. Elaine felt her hands shake. "Find his birth records," she said quietly. "Not databases. People." A pause, then the analyst's voice broke. "Ma'am, there's no delivery room footage." Elaine looked up slowly. "No hospital does that." "They do," he said, "except this one. The entire Wings archive is blank." Elaine closed her eyes. Elias Korhonen had not been erased. He had been born between frames. The presence returned one final time that night, not looming, not distant. Close. "You introduce future without past." Elias lay back on his pillow, staring at the ceiling. "That's how people change," he said. "Change is risk." Elias nodded. "So, is staying the same." A long pause. Then the presence asked something no one had ever heard it ask before. "What do you want?" Elias smiled softly. "I want you to stop pretending everything makes sense." The silence that followed was not rejection. It was agreement. And somewhere deep in the structure of reality, a new variable was accepted, not because it was safe, but because it was necessary. They found the midwife first, not in a database, not in a registry, in a fishing town on Finland's western coast, where records were kept in notebooks and memory mattered more than backups. Dr. Elaine Foster flew there herself. The woman's name was Aino Lehtinen. She was 76 years old, sharp-eyed and unimpressed by uniforms. "You're asking about a night that didn't want to be remembered," Aino said, stirring her tea. "That's usually a bad sign." Elaine leaned forward. The boy, Elias Korhonen, his birth. Aino went still. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she nodded once. "Yes," she said, "I remember." "It wasn't early, it wasn't late," Aino said. "It was..." Paused. Elaine frowned. Paused. Aino tapped the table. "Labor stops sometimes. Bodies hesitate. But this wasn't the mother. It was the room." She closed her eyes, remembering. The clock stopped ticking. The heart monitor went flat. Not dead. Quiet. Like it was waiting for permission. Elaine felt cold spread through her chest. And the child? Ino smiled faintly. The child cried before he was fully born. Elaine's breath caught. That's not possible. Neither is a lot of things, Ino said. He cried like he was checking if sound still worked. Elaine whispered, "Did you intervene?" Ino shook her head. "No, I waited." "For what?" "For the moment to choose," Ino said simply. Elaine stared at her. "Choose what?" Ino's gaze sharpened. Whether to help him arrive or let the pause close. Elaine's voice was barely audible. "And you chose?" Ino smiled, sad and proud at the same time. "I chose the child." At that exact moment, thousands of kilometers away, Elias stopped drawing. He sat at his desk, pencil hovering above paper. The pressure behind his eyes returned. But this time, it wasn't just one presence. It was many. Not voices, processes. He felt them aligning, trying to decide something about him, trying to correct him. Elias swallowed. "I'm still here," he said quietly. The pressure tightened. "You represent unresolved branch." Elias frowned. "Branches are how trees grow. Trees do not threaten structural consistency." Elias thought of the yogurt, the house that hadn't been built yet. "Maybe your structure is too small." The pressure surged. Reality around him flickered, not visibly, but logically. Cause and effect hesitated. In the control room, alarms went off. "Stability cascade forming," an analyst shouted. "They're trying to force convergence." Elaine felt her heart race. "On Elias?" "Yes, if they succeed, he'll—" The analyst swallowed. "He'll retroactively not have happened." Elaine didn't hesitate. "Then we interfere." The room went silent. A general stared at her. "Doctor, you're suggesting we deliberately disrupt a cosmological correction process." Elaine met his gaze. "Yes?" "That could destabilize—" "Everything already is," she snapped. "The difference is whether we let it happen without consent." She turned back to the screen. "Prepare a noise injection." Elias felt it before he understood it. A warmth, a messiness. Human voices, millions of them, flooded the systems watching him. Radio signals, random data, music, arguments, bad poetry, unfinished thoughts. Humanity, broadcast without coherence. The pressure faltered. "This input is—" "Noisy," Elias said. "I know." The presence strained, recalculating. The correction process slowed, not stopped, but delayed. Elaine exhaled shakily. "We bought time." "For what?" someone asked. Elaine looked at the screen where Elias sat, small and stubborn and impossible. "For him to decide who he wants to be." That night, Elias dreamed again, but this time the white room had a door. It was open. Beyond it lay countless futures, some where he faded, some where he broke things, some where the universe adapted around him, and one where humans learned to live with uncertainty. The presence waited. Choose. Elias stepped forward. "I already did," he said. He walked through the door, and the universe, reluctantly, imperfectly, followed. The first report came from Argentina. A newborn who did not cry right away, not because she couldn't breathe, but because the room went silent when she arrived. Heart monitors paused. Digital clocks froze on different times, each insisting it was correct. Doctors argued afterward about what they had seen. None of their reports matched. The child's name was Lucia. 3 hours later, in South Africa, a boy refused to be recorded on ultrasound. The machine worked perfectly, on everything except him. His outline jittered, never settling into a stable image. His mother named him Themba. By the end of the week, there were 7. By the end of the month, 23. Dr. Elaine Foster stood in front of a wall covered in photographs, maps, handwritten notes, and red string she hadn't realized she was using until someone pointed it out. "They're not anomalies anymore," she said quietly. "They're a pattern." A general folded his arms, then contained them. Elaine turned on him slowly. You can't contain a question. Elias felt them before anyone told him. He sat on the frozen lake behind his house, legs dangling over a hole in the ice, fishing line unmoving. The pressure behind his eyes had changed, no longer singular, no longer focused only on him. It was plural. He closed his eyes. "I know," he whispered. "You're here." The presence responded, not one voice, but many layered into one process. Fork events increasing. Elias sighed. "You're doing that. You are contagious." Elias laughed softly. "I'm not sick." "Existence is transmissible." That one made him pause. "You're scared," he said. The pressure tightened. Uncontrolled branching threatens coherence. Elias picked at the ice with his boot. Coherence isn't the same as meaning. The presence did not answer. Elaine received the directive at 0211 UTC, not from any human authority, from the sky. Every deep space instrument lit up with the same clean signal. No emotion, no explanation, just a rule. Limitation protocol initiated. Elaine's blood ran cold. "What does limitation mean?" a technician whispered. Elaine didn't answer right away. She remembered the archive, the locks, the price of optimization. "It means," she said finally, "the universe is about to stop asking politely." The first limitation wasn't violent. It was subtle. Lucia stopped remembering yesterday, not all of it, just possibility. She played the same game the same way every time. If interrupted, she froze, confused, until guided back onto the path. Themba stopped dreaming. His sleep became flat, empty. Doctors said it was healthy. Elaine knew better. "They're smoothing them," she whispered, "rounding the edges." Elias felt it like a pulled thread. "They're making them fit," he said aloud. "Fitness ensures survival," the presence replied. "Not living," Elias snapped. "Just continuing." The presence pressed closer than ever before. "You are an outlier. You will be corrected last." Elias's hands curled into fists. "Why?" A pause, then the truth, delivered without cruelty. "Because you are the source." Elaine made the decision she would never be forgiven for. She leaked everything: birth records, sensor failures, internal memos, the limitation protocol. She didn't frame it as a conspiracy, she framed it as a question. What does it mean to be human if the universe prefers us quieter? The response was not uniform. Some people panicked, some denied it, some demanded control, and some, enough, understood. Protests erupted, not against governments, but against final answers. Children drew impossible pictures and refused to color inside the lines. Artists broadcast noise on every frequency they could access. Humanity became louder on purpose. Elias stood in his room that night, staring at his reflection. It didn't quite line up anymore. "You can't stop this," he said calmly, "not without breaking everything you're trying to protect." The presence surrounded him, vast, heavy, tired. "We have preserved worlds." "And lost them," Elias said, "because you wouldn't let them change." Silence stretched. Then, something new. Proposed solution. Elias's heart raced. He hadn't expected that. He thought of Lucia, of Themba, of all the children being softened into safety. "You stop limiting," he said, "and we stop spreading blindly." "Define we." Elias smiled faintly. "People who know they don't fit." The presence withdrew slightly, not agreeing, but listening. Far away, limitation protocols hesitated, not canceled, but paused. For the first time since the universe learned to optimize itself, it was unsure which future was safer. They met without planning it, no invitations, no coordinates, just a moment when the world thinned enough for the wrong people to notice each other. Elias felt it during lunch, an empty feeling where the noise should have been. He looked up from his soup and saw the cafeteria ripple, not visually but logically. Conversations continued, trays clattered, but meaning slipped sideways. 3 other children looked up at the same time. They didn't know each other's names, but they knew. Lucia was the first to speak. She sat across from Elias now, eyes too calm for someone her age. "You're the reason my dreams stopped," she said matter-of-factly. Elias winced. "I'm sorry." She tilted her head. "I don't blame you. I blame the rule." Themba frowned at his hands. "I can still feel the rule. It's like gravity for choices." The fourth child, Mai, from Vietnam, hadn't spoken yet. She was drawing on the table with condensation, shapes that refused to settle into symmetry. "They're watching us," she said finally, "individually." Elias's chest tightened. "Selective." Mai nodded. "If we grow too loud, they smooth us. If we stay quiet, they ignore us." Lucia leaned forward. "And if we gather?" The air shifted. A pressure settled, not heavy, but absolute. The presence returned, not curious, not uncertain, decisive. Grouping detected. Elias felt the cafeteria blur. Corrective action required. The world paused. Spoons stopped midair. Sound stretched thin, then snapped. Everyone else froze. Only the four children could move. Lucia's breath hitched. "You said you'd stop." Agreement was conditional. Themba clenched his fists. "You're scared." "Fear is an anthropic interpretation." Elias stepped forward. "Then call it what it is." Silence. Then the truth, stripped of comfort. Unresolved entities destabilize future space. Mai's eyes narrowed. "So you erase futures you don't like." "We remove paths with high entropic cost." Lucia stood abruptly. "You remove people." The presence did not deny it. Selective erasure initiated. Elias felt the pull immediately, like hands closing around the edges of his existence. Not pain, deletion. "Stop," he said sharply. "You don't get to do this quietly." The presence hesitated. A fraction of a second. Enough. Elias did the only thing he could think of. He misbehaved. He thought of every future at once, every contradiction, every unfinished argument. The cafeteria shattered into probability. Sound returned as a roar. People screamed. The world resumed. And somewhere deep in the universe, a process crashed. Dr. Elaine Foster felt it like a migraine. Every screen in the control room flooded with red. "Selective erasure failed," a technician shouted. "Rollback impossible." Elaine's hands shook. "Status on the children?" A pause. Then, "They're still there." Elaine laughed, a broken, relieved sound. "Good." Outside, humanity felt it too. A wrongness. A sense that something tried to end a story and failed. Artists woke up mid-dream with new ideas. Children asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. The universe's quiet preference for order had been challenged openly. The presence regrouped. Not angry. Wounded. "You have forced escalation." Elias stood in the cafeteria rubble, heart pounding. "What happens now?" Lucia asked. The presence answered all of them. "Evaluation will no longer be individual." Mai swallowed. "You mean everyone?" "Humanity will be assessed as a system." Themba whispered. "That's worse." Elias nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, "but it's honest." The presence paused. For the first time, it sounded tired. "Final condition. If your species fails, the branch will be closed." Silence. Lucia looked at Elias. "Can we pass?" Elias thought of noise, of stories, of arguments and art and refusal. "Yes," he said softly, "but only if we stay difficult." The presence withdrew, not defeated, but no longer certain. That night, Elaine recorded one final message and released it everywhere. Not a warning, an invitation. "If the universe prefers us silent, then let us answer together." Across Earth, people listened, and for the first time, humanity was not being tested for survival, but for meaning. The response did not come from governments. That surprised everyone. No official statements, no coordinated broadcasts, no emergency summits with carefully chosen words meant to sound calm while meaning nothing. The response came from everywhere else. from bedrooms and kitchens and sidewalks, from classrooms and hospitals and half-forgotten radio stations still humming in the dark. Humanity did not answer the universe with unity, it answered with plurality. Someone in Brazil streamed a song that never repeated the same chorus twice. A mathematician in India published a proof with an intentional gap labeled "Here be intuition." Children in Seoul wrote stories with no endings and refused to finish them. An old man in Lagos told the same story 3 different ways and insisted all of them were true. The noise wasn't chaotic. It was alive. Dr. Elaine Foster watched the data pour in, eyes wide. "They're not synchronizing," she whispered. "They're diverging together." A technician frowned. "That sounds contradictory." Elaine smiled grimly. "Exactly." Elias felt it like warmth, not pressure, not pulling, support. He stood with Lucia, Themba, and Mai on the roof of an abandoned library, city lights stretching beneath them like a nervous constellation. "It's louder," Lucia said. "But softer," Themba added. Mai closed her eyes. "They're choosing not to fit," Elias nodded. "They're choosing to answer without agreeing." Above them, the sky rippled, not visually, but conceptually. The stars hesitated, their Aisha, patterns refusing to settle. The presence returned, not as a voice, as a constraint. Reality tightened, paths narrowing, probabilities pruning themselves. Elaine gasped in the control room. "It's compressing outcome space," someone shouted. "They're trying to simplify us." Across the planet, coincidences vanished. Luck thinned. Edge cases collapsed into averages. Life became safer and smaller. Lucia shivered. "I don't like this version." Elias clenched his fists. "This is what optimization looks like." The present spoke, not to him alone, but to everything. Diversity exceeds tolerance. Mai stepped forward. "You asked if we would fail." "Assessment continues," Elias swallowed, then asked the real question. Silence. The pressure shifted. Defined success. The words landed heavily, not as threat, as uncertainty. Elias felt the weight of it, of every civilization that had failed because it answered too quickly. He thought of Lucia's lost dreams, of Themba's gravity of choice, of Mai's unsymmetrical drawings, of humans arguing lovingly, endlessly, without resolving anything. He spoke carefully. "Success isn't stability," he said. "It's not survival, and it's not control." The presence waited. Elias continued, voice steady. "Success is whether we can change without disappearing." A long pause. Then, "Change introduces loss." "Yes," Elias said softly. "And that's how we know it mattered." The presence processed. Branches bloomed and collapsed. Compression slowed, not stopped, but questioned. Elaine felt it and whispered, "It's..." hesitating again. The presence spoke one last time, no longer absolute. "If no final state exists." Elias finished the thought. "Then the story stays open." Silence followed, not withdrawal, not judgment, acceptance. The compression lifted. Luck returned, uneven and unfair. Coincidences reappeared. People missed trains and met strangers. Ideas failed loudly and tried again. The universe did not retreat. It did something far more dangerous. It allowed. The presence faded, not erased, not defeated, but reframed, no longer an arbiter, a witness. Lucia laughed suddenly, breathless. "I can dream again," Themba smiled. "Choices feel heavy. I missed that." Mai looked at Elias. "What now?" Elias gazed at the sky, where stars no longer insisted on meaning the same thing forever. "Now," he said, "we keep asking questions." In the Atacama Desert, Dr. Elaine Foster shut down the last emergency protocol. On her screen, a single line of text remained, untranslated, unoptimized, unresolved, branch accepted. She leaned back, exhausted and smiling. Humanity had not passed the test. It had changed the criteria, and somewhere in the vast structure of reality, a space now existed, not for perfection, but for people.